They say truth can set you free. But they never talk about how long you might live in chains before you dare to speak it. My name is Rena. I'm 43 years old, and I've lived most of my adult life pretending I was just someone's tired secretary, someone's friendly neighbor, someone's anonymous shadow. But I am none of those things, not really. And neither is the boy I raised. When Devin was born, I thought I could rewrite everything. Thought I could take the aching ruin of my early 20s and sculpt something whole. He was my chance. My breath. My second start. His father, Colton, never understood that. He saw Devin as an obstacle. A weight. He left before the boy's third birthday, trading our crumbling apartment for a girlfriend half my age and a mortgage he wouldn't let me touch. So I stayed. With Devin. And the rent. And the impossible arithmetic of bills and food and hope. There were winters when we lived on instant noodles and borrowed heat. I cleaned doctors' offices by night, cataloged library books by day, and sometimes danced. Not for fun, not on a stage, but in the quiet sanctuary of our living room, barefoot and breathless, trying to remember who I used to be before life scraped the softness from my skin. Then one night, while temping at a catering gig in a glitzy downtown lounge, I met Judith. She was older, sharply elegant, the kind of woman whose gaze could measure you before you spoke a word. "You used to dance," she said, not asked, as she watched me stack glassware with too much grace. I blinked. "A long time ago." She smiled. "Come to the Rose Room. Tomorrow night. Don't wear black." The Rose Room wasn't a club. It wasn't a strip bar either. It was something stranger, sweeter. Cabaret of illusions, shadows, velvet, and secrets. Women performed not for male gaze but for fantasy, tailored, choreographed, veiled just enough to be intoxicating. Paid handsomely. Paid in rent and groceries and birthday cakes I no longer had to bake from pantry scraps. I danced under the name Astrid. And I never told Devin. To him, I was always something safe. A receptionist. A waitress. A yoga instructor. I rotated through lies like wigs, hoping the truth would never catch up. But it did. Devin was 17 when he asked. We were eating lemon pasta, his favorite. He put down his fork, eyes gentle but sharp. "Mom," he said, "just promise you'll be real with me, okay? What do you actually do?" I froze. 1,000 half-truths surged to my lips, but I swallowed them. Because he wasn't a child anymore. So I told him. About the Rose Room. The dances. The persona I wore like perfume. I braced for disgust. For silence. Instead, he said, "That's kind of awesome." My breath hitched. "You did all that for us. And you didn't fall apart. I'd be proud too." He didn't look away. But then he asked, "Can I see you perform?" I said no. Instantly. Firmly. "It's not for you," I said. "It's for everyone else. For the curtain. The spell." He nodded. Didn't push. But something shifted. He asked about my shows. Helped ice my knees when rehearsals left me sore. And sometimes I'd catch him watching me, not leering, not prying. Just seeing. Too much, too clearly. Then one rainy afternoon I found it. In his room. A printed photo. Me mid-pirouette under crimson lights, silk swirling, a halo of motion and power. A photographer's private reel, not public. Not meant for eyes that knew me as Mom. When I asked him why he had it, he said nothing. Just looked stricken. Guilty. Exposed. That night, he told me he was coming to the Rose Room. "I need to see all of you," he said. "I've seen the lies. I want the truth." And I let him. I don't know why. Maybe because I was tired of hiding. Or maybe because a part of me needed to be witnessed by someone who knew how deep the wounds ran. He sat in the audience 3 rows back. And I danced, not for the crowd. Not for the paycheck. I danced for the first time as a whole woman. But even as the lights warmed my skin, I could feel his gaze like a flame. And when I left the stage, the echo of that gaze followed me home. After that night, something fragile and wordless settled between us. Devin didn't speak about the performance on the ride home. He just played with the air conditioning dials and stared out the window like the trees knew more than I did. I didn't press. I couldn't. My heart was a storm in a cage. When we got home, he paused by the front door. You were different, he said, not looking at me. Beautiful, yeah. But strong. Like I've never seen. I wanted to say something clever. Thank you. That's makeup. That's Astrid, not me. But I said nothing. The next morning, I found a sketchbook on the kitchen table. Devon's. Left open. On the page was me. Not as I looked in life, but how he saw me, curved in movement, light flickering on silk, eyes closed in something like prayer. The art was delicate, reverent. My throat tightened. He had drawn me as a myth. When I asked him about it later, he shrugged, then said quietly, "That night changed how I think about you." How? I asked. He met my eyes. You're more than I ever knew. The words settled somewhere dangerous inside me. I wasn't sure if it was pride or fear. After that, Devon started waiting for me after shows. First, it was innocent. He'd park around the corner and walk me to the car, warm coat in hand. He never came in. Never asked. But he started coming earlier. Sometimes I'd see him in the back row just before curtain. Quiet. Still. Watching. And I started dancing differently when he was there. Not overtly, but more precisely, more truthfully, 'cause he knew the story behind each movement, the reason Astrid bent, rose, turned. At home, our dynamic changed in strange ways. He noticed when I looked tired and brought me tea. When I wrapped a scarf around my waist before practice, his gaze would linger a beat too long. Not inappropriate, just focused. A study in motion. One night, I caught him standing in the hallway outside the mirror room. He didn't say anything, just watched my reflection. I was stretching, my back arched, arms overhead. I turned slightly and met his eyes in the glass. You okay? I asked. He nodded. You look free in here. I didn't reply. Truth was too sharp. Days passed. Then, one Sunday, I was searching his closet for extra blankets. I found a canvas. Hidden, but not hidden enough. It was me again. But not dancing. Not performing. I was tying my hair up, mid-motion, one shoulder bare, my expression unreadable. The kind of moment a stranger couldn't capture, only someone who had watched for years without ever truly seeing. When I asked him about it, he didn't deny it. I painted it after the first night, he said. You looked real. Devon, this, I paused. It's a lot. I know. Silence. Then he said, Can I come again? Just once. I shook my head. You've seen enough. But I haven't, he whispered. Not even close. There was nothing untoward in his voice. No threat. No boundary crossed. Just hunger. To know. To understand. To stand on the stage where I lived and see the woman he'd never fully grasped. That night I danced again. He didn't come. But the next morning, he left another sketchbook on the table. Page after page of me, stretching, laughing, yawning, brushing my teeth. All from memory. All drawn with a kind of awe. He was making a gallery of my life. And I didn't know whether to be honored or terrified. 'Cause the curtain I had once danced behind was now wide open. And I didn't know if either of us knew how to close it again. Began with the small things. The way Devon started calling me by my name instead of Mom when we were alone. How his hands sometimes lingered a beat too long on my back when passing by. And I let it happen. Not because I wanted to blur the lines, but because something inside me had blurred long ago and I was only just realizing it. We were sitting on the living room floor one night, surrounded by sketchbooks, costume pieces, an old box of stage jewelry I hadn't opened in years. Devon had found it while cleaning the attic. These used to be magic to me, he said, holding up a gold cuff. Like I thought you were a superhero with secret armor. I smiled. Maybe I was. He looked at me, something shadowed in his gaze. Still are. The words sat between us like incense smoke. Heavy, sweet, impossible to grasp. He asked if he could photograph me. For his final art school project. A portrait of truth, he called it. I should have said no. I knew that. But I didn't. He took pictures of me dancing in the empty mirror room, lit only by the morning sun through sheer curtains. My hair unpinned. My feet bare. First, I laughed between takes. Made faces. Teased. But then I saw the way he was watching me through the lens. Quiet. Breathless. As if each frame took something sacred and set it free. Later, as he showed me the photos on his camera, he said softly, "You don't hide in these." And I realized I wasn't. I didn't know how to anymore. The next day, he left a painting in the hallway outside my bedroom. Me caught mid-pose, one arm lifted like reaching for something unseen. My body painted in soft blues and bruised golds, like light trying to become solid. He titled it Becoming. I stood staring at it for hours. That evening, I asked him gently, "Devin, what are you trying to tell me?" He didn't answer right away. He stood beside me, looking at the painting as if it belonged to someone else. Then he said, "That I see you. That I finally see all of you." His hand brushed mine. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing dramatic. But it burned all the same. We didn't speak of it again. But the air around us changed. Thickened. One night, as I returned home from a performance, he was waiting in the kitchen, barefoot, wrapped in a hoodie. He poured me wine without a word, the way a lover might, silent, intuitive. "Sit," he said, nodding to the stool. I sat. He showed me a short film he'd made. Collage of shadow and music, of hands reaching and feet spinning. My silhouette, unmistakable, was the heartbeat of the piece. When the credits faded, he looked at me, his voice hoarse. "You saved us, Rena. I don't know if you ever understood how much." I didn't know what to say. My throat closed. I reached for his hand. He held it gently, like one would hold something holy. And we sat like that. For a long time. Not mother and son. Not dancer and muse. Just two people, lost in a moment of fragile, quiet truth. A truth we weren't ready to name. The gallery showing was Devin's idea. He called it Veil, a study of motion and myth. I pretended not to guess what or who it was about. But the invitations gave it away. Cream cardstock, heavy and matte, with my outlines sketched in gold foil. My body in profile caught mid-leap. He asked me to come. "Can't," I said. "You must," he said. I didn't answer. But on the night of the show, I stood outside the converted warehouse in a floor-length coat and sunglasses, the dusk pressing warm against my skin. A part of me wanted to run. But I walked in. The space was breathtaking. Canvas after canvas of Astrid, me, each one a version of the same woman, shifting like moon phases. There were charcoal sketches of my hands, oil paintings of my back turned, watercolors of my face in shadow. In the center, a 3-panel piece titled Mother/Mirror/Myth. And at the very back, on its own wall, under its own light, a painting I hadn't seen before. Me, standing in the dressing room, one hand holding a comb, the other adjusting my shoulder strap. My eyes, not caught mid-dance, but looking straight out, meeting the viewer's gaze. It was raw. Honest. Almost defiant. He had called it uncurtained. I didn't know whether to cry or leave. I stayed. When Devin found me later, I was standing before that piece. He said nothing. Just stood beside me, hands in his pockets. "Why this one?" I asked. "Because that's the first time I saw you as you are," he said. "Not Astrid. Not the version you pretend to be. Just you." "And who is she?" I asked, quieter now. He looked at me, eyes steady. Someone I've spent my whole life trying to understand. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was full. Brimming. He reached for my hand again. Not possessive. Not confused. Just a gesture of connection. "You're my mother," he said softly. "But also, you're more than that. You're a woman who created herself out of nothing. That matters. That deserves to be seen." My breath trembled in my chest. "You know people will talk," I whispered. "Let them," he said. "What do they know about building myths?" We walked out of the gallery side by side. The streetlights flickered on as if to guide us home. Back at the house, we didn't speak much. I made tea. He brought out the last sketchbook, unfinished pages, open to blank space. He handed it to me. Fill it, he said. With anything. With everything. I smiled. In the quiet that followed, I finally felt the weight lift. Not the weight of shame. Or secrecy. But of misunderstanding. 'Cause the truth wasn't ugly. It wasn't dangerous. It was simply this. I had lived 2 lives. And Devon had loved me through both. Not as something forbidden. But as someone finally fully known.